Getting a government job can be difficult, but once you are in, just how hard is it to get promoted? Let's talk about some of the challenges that come with your next promotion. The first thing you have to consider, the step negotiation is gone. You're no longer able to negotiate the step level. And when you're first coming into the government, you can negotiate the step, which ends up being up to a $30,000 difference from step 1 to step 10, depending on the GS grade. So what happens when you get promoted? If you get promoted in the government, let's say you move agencies or you stay in the same agency, they have something called the 2-step promotion rule. And you're going to have to follow that rule. The only way to negotiate step level is if you leave the federal government for 90 days. If you leave 90 days or more and then come back in, they will once again allow you to negotiate your step level. So if you're not in the government yet, you need to make sure that you're at least trying. I get some questions on this sometimes like, should I try? I don't want to have my job offer pulled. Hey, listen. Try one time at least. Now, if they come back and they say they can't do it, don't keep trying because then your job offer is in jeopardy. It's at risk. But I think everyone owes it to themselves when they're first coming in to at least try. Next is that the internal hiring path is still competitive. I mean, you don't think this looking at it from the outside. If a job announcement has internal hire and you're at that agency, so let's say the job announcement is for the Department of Treasury and you work at the Department of Treasury, you think that would give you an advantage. But it doesn't necessarily because other people in the office, they're applying. So it's going to come down to how's your reputation? Are you known as a strong worker? Are you a good communicator? These things are going to come into play. Keep in mind that the hiring manager, you might see them every day. You might walk past them getting a cup of coffee, wave and say, hey, how you doing, Eric? And Eric says, hi, I'm doing pretty good, and smile at you. And the hiring manager still might not pick you because there was a better candidate than you. He probably still likes you to an extent, but he's not going to use that to form a bias over his decision on who to hire. Next, it's going to come down to what service are you in? Are you in the accepted service? Are you in the competitive service? This matters a lot. I talk to people that have spent over a decade in the accepted service, and they're shocked to find out that it means nothing towards tenure. It doesn't mean they can compete for competitive service jobs. They still can't do that. They're competing from the outside. And they're asking me, they're telling me, how is this possible that I spent 12 years in the government, but because it's an accepted service position, I'm not eligible to compete for competitive service? That doesn't make sense to them. And they get a little outraged, to be honest with you. Now, interagency agreements exist between certain accepted service positions to competitive service, but that's going to vary depending on what agency you work for. Generally, if you're SF50, if you look at the bottom, if it has a box checked for competitive service, you're good to go. You can apply to competitive service jobs. If it has a check next to accepted service, then you're not going to be able to. There's also no filter that helps you navigate through USAJobs.gov on which jobs are actually in the competitive service and which ones are not. So what you're going to have to look at for each job announcement, you're going to have to look all the way on the bottom to the right-hand side. It'll say service, and it'll tell you what type of service that job is for. There is a filter to see what hiring path you're looking for the job announcement, who's it open to, but it doesn't tell you unless you look at that section. And there's actually 3 services when it comes to the federal government. You do have competitive service, you have accepted service, and you have senior executive service. Next is on the job announcements, the agency will have agency-specific language. So this will come into effect when you're trying to jump agencies. So let's say you work at the Department of Agriculture, but you want to make the jump to the Department of Education. Some of those announcements, they will have very specific language on what system you need to be familiar with. And for example, the Department of Education might want you to have related experience dealing with systems that only exist in the Department of Education. So how would you have that experience? You wouldn't. So even though it's open for you to apply, you don't have the right experience no matter what the job series is. The job series could match identical, but they're looking for somebody else. So there's no sense in applying to those type of positions. You might think that a policy analyst, that because it has that title and because it has that job series, that it's interchangeable across all the agencies. And sometimes it is interchangeable. Other times they're looking for that specific knowledge. They're looking for that specific experience. That's why it's so crucial to read through that job announcement. Bottom line, it comes down to how strong your resume is and how often are you actually applying. You would think that to get another government job, when you are a government employee, it would be easy or easier. And sometimes it is. Other times, it's once again a numbers game. How many times are you applying this week? How many times are you applying through the weekend? Now, if you haven't yet gone on USAJobs.gov and started applying for another federal government job because you don't know if you're going to be a good fit, is that agency for you? What is it like to be a government employee at that agency? If these are some of the questions that you're struggling with, I want you to watch this video next. If you would like to see more videos like this, please click like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.